Hi, everyone, and welcome to day 15 of Savvy Sexy Social vlog every day in August. So, today, what we're going to talk about is tarot, personal growth, and business growth, and how they all tie together. So, the question that we're looking at today is why personal growth is absolutely crucial to business growth. Hi, everyone, I'm Alex, and this is Tea and Transformation. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're doing here. So the card that we're looking at is the number one card in the deck. It's called the Magician. But what's really important is if you look on his table, you'll see that he has the Pentacles, the Rod or Wands, the Cups, and the Swords. And those are the four suits in the tarot deck. And what the Magician is showing us is a person who has gained mastery over the four elements. So earth, wind, fire, and water. And so we use those metaphorically. But what it means is that we have a person who has gained mastery in a number of areas and now has the ability to put them together, put those areas together in order to create a successful endeavor of one sort or another. Now, what we're going to be talking about here, sorry, I got a hair in my mouth. What we're going to be talking about here tonight is mastery in business through mastery of our personal selves or our personal lives. And so let's just talk about some of the leadership skills. So we're going to look at leadership skills like communication, motivation. Let me see, what else have we got in here? Trusting each other, principles, responsibilities, that sort of thing. So I'm just going to go through the notes that I've made and talk about some of those leadership skills and how they're sourced from personal growth and how they impact on our business, or at least I hope that's what I'm going to be doing. So then the very first skill on many lists, like if you Google it, communication skills are right up at the top there, because of course if we can't explain what we want, we can't tell our staff what we want, then how do we accomplish our goals? So we have to have some kind of communication skills. We have to close sales. We have to convert leads into sales. We have to figure out what our funnels are, what it is that we're giving away for free in order to build our email list. Like, there's all kinds of information that is absolutely dependent upon our ability to communicate and communicate well. And part of that whole communication process is listening. And listening to discern what it is that our audience wants. So we have to understand that sometimes the very first thing we hear, and often the conversation we're having, has nothing to do with what the real question is. And I'll give you an example of that. Oftentimes, as a tarot reader, you will have people ask you whether or not a particular person they're interested in is someone who is marriage material. And the problem with that often is that there's been one or two dates, or they're just chatting online. They haven't even actually met in person yet. And I understand the question in terms of, is this someplace I want to spend my time? But to ask whether or not it's a marriage type relationship on one date is a little early in the process. But the thing is that that's not the real question. The real question is, am I or will I ever be loved? Am I worthy of love? Is this person going to return to me the love that I want to share with someone? So it's not about that specific person. It's about the concept of love. And am I worthy of love? Will I find love, or will I spend my life alone? So that's the real question that's going on here. So one of the skills that a leader needs to have is the ability to communicate, and part of that communication is to listen well. Now, how does that work in a metaphysical or personal growth way? One of the things that you do when you're on the consciousness trail is you start to meditate, and you learn to meditate, whether or not it's a moving meditation like yoga or Tai Chi, or whether or not it's a sitting meditation like Vipassana meditation. it's a matter of quieting those parts of ourselves so that we can listen to ourselves. We can listen to what's going on with us, and we can listen with a kind of clarity. And as you develop that self within, as you develop that skill within yourself, you're able to hear and to see that in other people much more easily. I don't know that I would particularly say that one is developing psychic skills, for instance, but I do think that as you become more aware of what's going on with you physically and mentally, and this does happen through meditation, and I did teach meditation for well over 10 years, is that as we develop those skills, we're able to see what it is that's going on with other people because we're able to read their bodies much more clearly. And we know from communication theory that 10%, that in communication 10% is verbal. The rest of it is all body communication. So it's all about body language. And if you you can study, you can pick up a book. God knows, you can go to the library, you can go to a secondhand bookstore and pick up a book on body language. But if you're just reading that book on body language to get the upper hand, there's something that's just so totally out of integrity in learning skill sets so that you can have the upper hand, so that you can win, so that it's not a win-win, but it's like I win, you lose. It's one-upmanship. So I think that part of the whole personal growth thing takes a look at those kinds of issues and goes, well, no, maybe that's not the way to go. I talked, I believe it was yesterday, about being at ease with yourself. And I think that when you start meditation, when you start to put together your visual acuity, when you start listening to yourself and therefore be able to listen to other people much more clearly, that you start to develop a kind of equilibrium, a kind of balance, that it really is. We say win-win, because we don't have another language that allows us to talk about the equality or the equity in coming together. Well, no, actually, I'm going to take that back. I think that in feminist management models, in the collaborative model, that we're much closer to that kind of give and take. Now, when you go on from there, I'm going to talk about motivation, which is another thing, right? It's like the rah-rah thing is be a leader, get out there, motivate the troops, get them to follow you into battle. Now, that's sort of really a boomer way of looking at things. I don't think that's true so much now. I think that motivation comes from, instead of motivating people and leading out in the front and having them follow you, good leaders now actually lead from the back of the pack. And the way that they do that is because they support their staff. Now, millennials have changed the workplace so that instead of coming into work, as boomers did, you come into work and there's the clock and you punch into the time clock and you leave your personal life at home and you come in and you sit down and you get your job done, you work your 40 hours a week, you go home and then you have a life. Millennials don't see it that way. Millennials blend their private and public and work life together in a way that I don't think we've ever done before. Part of that comes from all the self-esteem work we as good boomer parents put our kids through. So now they're in a very different place. And one of the things they expect at work is support. So we are much more supportive of each other. If an employee is coming to work, they're not leaving their private life at the door, and they may bring it into work with them. And, sometimes that's messy. Sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is. And so we support people enough so that they can deal with their private lives, but also continue to be functional and excel in their work life. And, part of that is in the hiring process now, it's almost standard to be asked a question of, what's your self-care plan? When you get upset or things aren't going well at work, and inevitably they will not, something will happen, how do you take care of yourself? And that's a conversation that never happened in the interview process 15 years ago. I have been in very traditional jobs and in job interviews where that is a normal part of the conversation, and it wasn't. So, and once hired, having to file a self-care plan. I've actually worked in two places where I had to develop a self-care plan and file it with the HR department. So, things like that happen. And things have changed. And so motivation now, instead of being out in front of the troops and leading them, it's actually in the back, leading from the back, and having your staff excel at what they do and being supported and being brilliant in their jobs. Very different job site. Now let's see, what else have we got down here? Right, authenticity. So one of the parts about being a leader is sometimes with suppliers, customers, staff people, we have to have very difficult conversations. And you know the ones, because they're the ones you avoid. I think in the workplace we often think about, what if you have to fire someone? It's a difficult conversation. Nobody likes doing it. But there's lots of other conversations that are difficult if we're going to talk. And they're always difficult because we perceive them as being negative. Right? So if we have to have, we call it constructive criticism. Really, if we're really telling the truth, somebody's not doing their job, we're obliged to have a conversation with them that is remedial in nature, and it can be an uncomfortable conversation. Especially if we're not in an environment that is collaborative or supportive. And, because the truth is, if you're not doing well at your job, you know that. You know that. So why is it such a difficult conversation for a business owner to talk to an employee? It all comes down to safety. If I really, as an employee, tell you the truth about what's really going on, I'm going to lose my job, and I can't afford to do that. So that dynamic makes having direct conversations very difficult. However, if you're in a place of your own personal growth and you have dealt with your authentic self, you recognize when you're being authentic, and then even better, you have to recognize your inauthenticities because they're still there. And coming from that place of listening, understanding, being supportive, and hopefully you've assembled a team that you really do want to see be brilliant, and you don't know why somebody may not be performing the way you want them to. So hopefully by being on your own personal growth journey, being on the consciousness trail, and not being egotistical about it, because we all know those people, to be able to come together with a staff person to seek out what's going on so that we can figure out a plan in order to support you in being brilliant at your job, because this is not a conversation about firing you. And I think when we create that kind of emotional safety in the workplace, that we have a better workplace because people feel safe being there. This, again, is a conversation you would not have had 20 years ago in the workplace. But it also involves being in a place of personal growth where you are authentic about who you are and what your skill set is and what you want. This isn't about bluster. It isn't about yelling and screaming. It isn't about blaming. What would it be like to work in a workplace where none of your supervisors blamed you for not performing well, but instead said, and really sincerely meant it? I mean, I was a salesman for years. I've had more than one conversation with some kind of sales manager who figured they're going to have that conversation with you and they're going to go, what do we need to do in order to have you perform better? And it's like there's a trace of, I don't know what it is, but you know what it is because you've been there. And it's like, how does that be different? Part of it is, how do we build that relationship? Do we have safety in the conversation? Can I be transparent with you about what's really going on, both from an employee / supervisor position to an employee position? So that dynamic is a safe dynamic, and that we're all really clear nobody's getting fired here today. So those are difficult conversations. Oh, I can see we're running out of time here already. And principles. I'm going to jump right to principles. I have more. I'm sure there's more that I should be talking about this, but I want to talk about principles, because principles, as we know, really blend into the context that we set on how our business takes place. We know our why. Many of us haven't really discovered our how. How are we going to do this? In what context are we going to do this? What are our principles that will lead us forward here? What are we committed to? What are our commitments here? I say that if you don't have a personal growth background, that having an authentic conversation around your principles is going to be difficult. It's going to be surface. And everybody's going to get that feeling like, we know energy. You know, I know many of you go like, psychic, come on, girl. Really? Seriously? I get that. But I want you to just think for a minute about those times when you were having conversations and you know it's bullshit. You know it's just somebody parroting words that they learned in a management class because somebody told them if they said that it was going to make everything work. You know the authenticity. You know because the energy is different. And you know when it's sincere, and you know when it really is nobody's getting fired here today. So that's the whole thing around trusting. And it's trusting in yourself, trusting in the work that you've done, trusting that you're infallible, that you don't have all the answers, but that as a team you're willing to discover those answers together. So, God, I just feel like I just scratched the surface of that. But I think it's a really good conversation to have about personal growth and business growth. Wouldn't you know it, I got the hiccups now. So that having been said, I do think personal growth is absolutely crucial to business growth because it does, in many ways, dictate our how. So I'm going to leave it off there today. You know the drill. Please subscribe. And I've been getting more comments from you. I love them. It makes me feel like, I mean, I would do this anyways because there's value in it for me as a learning opportunity to get better at being on camera, to get better at editing and all of that stuff. But it also makes me feel like I'm contributing to my community when you respond and comment. So I really like the comments. But please subscribe, like and share the video if you think that it would be of use to anybody that you know. And leave a comment. What do you think about personal growth as it being crucial to business growth? I mean, is that even a conversation? I think it is, but, you know, I could be way out in left field. How would I know? But anyways, there it is. That's it for today. So again, it's Savvy Sexy Social, vlog every day in August, day 15. I'm Alex. This is Tea and Transformation, and we'll see you tomorrow.